Hey everyone, ready to really dig into this whole egg shortage thing? It seems like everyone's talking
Yeah,
about
you
it.
see it everywhere.
And if you're anything like me, you've definitely noticed it both at the grocery store
Oh, absolutely.
and when you're checking out.
Yeah,
So we're going to take a deep dive into the business and financial side of all this today.
it's a big one.
It really is. We've got some great sources to help us out too. We've got articles from the Columbian and the Seattle Times. Those are going to give us sort of the view from the ground.
Yeah, real life perspective.
Exactly. And then to get into the hard numbers, we've got a USDA report to really crunch some of that data.
Awesome.
So,
I'm excited.
me too. I think this is going to be really interesting. It's amazing how something as basic as eggs can tell us so much about how the economy's doing.
Oh, yeah, you can really see the connections.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So let's jump right in. Give me the overview here. What's the situation really like out there?
Well, the Seattle Times has this story about a shopper, Judy Simon, and she went to her usual grocery store, and the only thing she could find were quail eggs.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine?
That's wild.
Quail eggs.
Yeah.
It's a pretty stark illustration of how this shortage is really changing what we're seeing at the grocery store.
And I bet those tiny little eggs come with a pretty big price tag.
Oh, you are not wrong. The Columbian article mentions prices hitting $6.99 a dozen in some places.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, and this isn't just some, local thing. This price hike, it's everywhere.
Right.
It's part of that broader inflation picture that's hitting the economy.
Yeah.
And all those rising costs, they're squeezing everyone.
So empty shelves, crazy high prices, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But what's really at the root of this whole mess?
So the main culprit is avian influenza.
Ah, the bird flu.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the USDA report has some pretty grim numbers about just how bad the impact has been.
Yeah.
In 2024 alone, we lost almost 40 million commercial egg-laying hens to outbreaks and facility fires.
40 million.
Almost 40 million.
That's huge.
It is. It's like wiping out the entire chicken population of Iowa.
Wow. Okay, no wonder prices are going up.
Exactly.
So the USDA report, does it get into any more specifics about all those losses?
Yeah, it actually breaks it down even further.
Okay.
It turns out that cage-free systems were hit the hardest. They accounted for like 56% of the losses.
Interesting.
Yeah, cage-free is great for animal welfare, but these systems often have more birds in closer proximity,
Right.
which makes them more vulnerable to these outbreaks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you can kind of see how even a good intention like that can have some unintended consequences when it comes to something as, delicate as a supply chain.
Yeah, for sure. So we've talked about the impact on, shoppers like us.
Hmm.
But it's not just about the eggs we have for breakfast, right?
Right.
This is affecting businesses.
No, absolutely. The USDA report says that 32% of the hens that we lost,
Okay.
those were producing eggs not for, those cartons we buy at the store, but for businesses.
Interesting.
Yeah, restaurants, bakeries,
Oh,
all
you're
kinds
right.
of food manufacturers, they're all having to adapt.
So this is a much bigger problem than just what we're seeing at the grocery store.
Yeah, definitely. And the USDA report talks about how retailers are struggling to keep up.
Oh, really?
A lot of them are limiting how many cartons each customer can buy. Some are even posting warnings about availability.
Wow.
Yeah, they're trying to manage expectations, but it's a tough situation for everybody involved.
So empty shelves,
Yeah.
frustrated shoppers,
Yeah.
businesses that are on edge. It doesn't sound like a very good recipe.
Yeah, it's definitely not the best situation.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
It really is. And it makes me think about all those businesses that depend on eggs. Bakeries, restaurants, all those companies that use eggs in their products.
Yeah.
They must be feeling this pretty hard.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think
Yeah.
about bakeries for a second. Eggs are like a core ingredient in pretty much all their recipes.
Right.
So now they're not only having to deal with higher ingredient costs, they're also having a hard time just getting enough eggs to meet demand.
Yeah, it's a double whammy for sure.
Yeah.
So what are their options? I mean, do they raise prices? Do they have to cut back on production? Maybe even stop making some things?
Pretty much, yeah. And those are tough choices to make, especially for smaller businesses that are already working with pretty slim profit margins.
Right.
They don't have the same buying power as the big companies, so they're getting squeezed even harder.
And it's not just the smaller companies, right? The big food manufacturers, they're feeling the pain too.
Definitely. These companies, they work on a massive scale. So even small changes in prices can have a huge impact on their bottom line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they need to be able to predict what their ingredients are going to cost to keep things running smoothly. So all this volatility in the egg market, it really throws a wrench in the works.
So basically, everyone's trying to figure out how to adjust to this new reality. The USDA report, does it talk about the financial impact of all this? What's it saying about egg prices in general?
Yeah, so the report shows that wholesale egg prices have actually started to come down a little bit in the last few weeks.
Okay, so maybe a little bit of good news.
But don't get too excited. They're still way higher than what we've seen in the past.
So some relief, but not a total return to normal.
Huh.
And I'm guessing that even though wholesale prices are dropping, we're not necessarily going to see that reflected at the grocery store right away.
Right. It's possible that businesses might have to absorb some of those higher costs themselves to stay competitive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They can't just keep raising prices on customers forever. People are already feeling the pinch, and they'll start looking for other options if things get too expensive.
So it's this balancing act, right? Businesses have to make a profit, but they also need to keep their customers happy.
Exactly. It's like walking a tightrope.
Totally. So what does the USDA report say about the future? What can we expect?
Well, it's a little bit unclear. There are a lot of factors at play, but they do think that egg production will start to increase in the next few months.
Right.
So that could help to stabilize prices eventually. But there are still a lot of unknowns.
Like what?
Well, the threat of bird flu is still out there. We don't know if or when another outbreak might happen. And if it does, that could send prices skyrocketing again. And then there's the cost of feed for the chickens, which is also going up thanks to inflation.
Makes sense.
And on top of all that, if those January snowstorms hit like they're predicting,
Oh, yeah. What happens then?
well, demand could go way up.
Oh, I see.
People stuck at home, they want comfort food. Eggs are suddenly back on the menu.
Right.
But if demand increases while supplies are still low, well, you can imagine what happens to prices.
Yeah, not good. So it sounds like we're all just kind of waiting to see how things play out. Shoppers are dealing with higher prices. Businesses are trying to adapt, and we're all hoping for the best.
Pretty much, yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty, but it's also kind of fascinating to see how businesses are coming up with creative solutions to this whole egg situation.
Like what kind of solutions?
Well, some restaurants are starting to use liquid egg products instead of shell eggs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it helps them keep their recipes consistent, and it might help them avoid some of those price increases.
That's pretty smart. So they're finding ways to work around the problem.
Exactly. And it just shows how important it is to be flexible and resilient, in a world where things can change so quickly.
For sure.
This egg shortage, it's a perfect example of how one event can have a ripple effect across an entire industry.
Absolutely.
So businesses have to be prepared to adapt if they want to survive these kinds of challenges.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you've got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Right.
But in this case, it's more like the eggs are already broken. So how do we make the best omelet we can with what we've got?
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
Yeah, and it really speaks to the ingenuity of the people running these businesses. They're not giving up. They're finding ways to make it work. It's actually pretty impressive.
It is when you think about it. And it makes you realize how connected everything is. This isn't just about eggs. It's about how we produce our food, how we consume it, how businesses operate, how the whole economy functions.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. This deep dive has taken us from those empty shelves at the store to the boardrooms of these big companies.
It really has.
And it shows just how complex our food systems are and how much they impact our lives.
Yeah, for sure. So zooming out a bit, what's the bigger picture here? Where does all this leave us? And what can we expect moving forward?
Yeah, that is the big question, isn't it? Will things get back to normal, or are we going to be paying, an arm and a leg for eggs forever?
Yeah.
What should we be looking out for in the next few months?
Well, the USDA report gives us some clues, but, trying to predict the future of any market, especially one as unpredictable as this, it's tough. There's just so much going on.
Yeah, for sure. The report did say that usually demand for eggs goes down in January.
Right.
But with all these winter storms coming, could we actually see demand go up instead?
That's a real possibility.
Yeah.
If those forecasts are right and people are stuck inside wanting comfort food,
Right.
we could see another big jump in demand. And if that happens while supplies are still tight, well, you can guess what's going to happen to prices. Yeah, probably not going to be pretty. So it sounds like we're all just in a wait-and-see mode right now. Shoppers are dealing with those higher prices. Businesses are trying to figure things out. And we're all kind of crossing our fingers, hoping for the best.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. There's definitely a lot of uncertainty, but I think there's also an opportunity here. This whole situation has really shown how interconnected everything is. Our food systems, the economy, even the choices we make as shoppers.
So what can we do about it? I mean, should we just sit back and watch the economy play out?
Not necessarily. I think we can all do our part, even in small ways. As shoppers, we can be more aware of what we're buying. Maybe try some different protein sources or, support those businesses that are coming up with creative solutions to this problem.
Yeah, and those businesses, they're showing a lot of resilience, aren't they? They're finding workarounds, testing out new ingredients, basically doing whatever they can to keep things going.
Exactly. And that's something we can all learn from, whether we're running a business or just trying to figure out our own lives. This egg shortage, as crazy as it is, it's a reminder that being adaptable and resourceful, those are key ingredients for success, no matter what challenges we're facing.
That's a great point. This deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to a whole new way of looking at this. It's amazing how something like an egg shortage can show us so much about how complicated the world really is.
And that's what we're all about here on the deep dive, giving you the knowledge and insights to see the world a little differently and maybe even make some better choices along the way.
So next time you're at the store and you see those empty egg shelves or you're feeling the pinch at the register, just remember there's a lot more to the story than meets the eye. It's all about supply and demand, global markets, and the amazing ability of people to overcome unexpected challenges.
And as always, we encourage you to stay curious, keep learning, and hey, maybe even give a tofu scramble a try for breakfast. You might be surprised at how much you like it.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And remember, knowledge is power. Keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and we'll see you next time.